It's an ordinary Thursday. It's almost the end of the working week for Jagex, and a quiet one at that. The loyalty program was announced just a few hours ago, and as the morning blooms into the afternoon, two players named DataGuide839 and Titanium enter the Stealing Creation minigame on World 158 and 119. Mod Chrisso, the lead bug curator on RuneScape at the time, receives a message, and then a few more after that. DataGuide and Titanium claim they found a bug, and they want to show him how it's done. Amused, Chrisso decides to check out what they found. He teleports to Stealing Creation, unaware that he's about to become the victim to one of the most famous exploits in all of RuneScape's history. Hello everyone, my name is Woolmisted and I've been playing RuneScape for over 16 years. I've always been extremely fascinated by RuneScape's history. Not just the in-game lore, but the player-made events as well. From the Squeal of Fortune riots in 2012, Zezima being the first to 99 Slayer in 2005, or darker events such as the 2001 Purple Party Hat duplication, which scarred the game economy in ways it still notices. Or even the Falador massacre, which I'm sure needs no introduction. But one event that's had my interest for years is one that I knew almost nothing about, and one that I never really saw anyone talk about. So I decided to do a little digging into the topic and delve into the 2011 exploit that allowed one player to literally steal the powers of a Jmod for just a few minutes. This is the full story of the Great Rotten Potato Robbery. It's a warm summer in the mid-2000s. Slayer is now 6 months old and RuneScape is already introducing another skill, farming. Jagex at this point is still in its relative infancy. They might have more staff than what they did when they started, but the player base is growing and fast. Testing skills in such a short time span is difficult, and as farming relies on waiting up to real-time hours for certain things to grow, it's even harder to test. The QA testers needed a tool to make sure it's ready in time, and so a new tool was made. This tool allowed testers to hunt for problems in farming without needing to wait. They could speed up the farming process by advancing the 5-minute cycle, clear all their patches simultaneously, or spawn the new tools required to train the skill. Effectively a staff cheat tool to help the QA test the game, it continued to have more features added to it, such as changing your levels, opening the bank from anywhere in the game, spawning certain items, and even banning the accounts of other players if used on them. Strictly a developer tool, there would be no way to legally obtain it in-game, and so there was no reason to let the players know it even existed. But if the RuneScape players are one thing, it's devoted. Jagex couldn't just add it and keep it quiet, because the data miners were looking. For those who don't know, data mining is a process which lets the user see inside the game in ways they normally shouldn't. Some files are meant to be unreadable, but, well, it's the internet. They find a way. What's more, because data miners could compare files before and after an update, it was very easy to pinpoint what they wanted to mine and see what was added. They'd find any new NPCs even if those NPCs wouldn't be available in-game just yet, and they'd find any new items. If Jagex added an obvious new dev tool to the game, rumors would start to spread, so they had to hide it. Luckily, farming was about to introduce a lot of new items to the game. New tools, new seeds, new products, poisoned weapons. It was the perfect opportunity to sneak it in, but they needed something discreet. Original ideas included a dragon toothpick and a dragon sponge, but those would stick out like a needle in a haystack, especially in an era where only a few dragon items existed and players were hungry for more. So, hidden among all the new farming items, a very important vegetable was smuggled into existence. Jagex Moderators had their new tool in all its magnificence, and no one batted an eye. The rotten potato was born. And this plan worked. Buried under a mountain of other virtual vegetables, nobody highlighted the unobtainable rotten potato, and its existence remained a secret to all but the Jmods. Nowadays, the potato sticks out like a sore thumb in the item database, a single food item sandwiched awkwardly between a stool and a poisoned spear. But technology was not as advanced back in 2005, and with the tools the data miners used at the time, they'd been fooled. For the latter half of the 2000s, the potato remained undiscovered, being RuneScape's greatest secret, one that was kept through hundreds of updates and historical events. That is, until it all came crashing down in the early summer months of 2011. But first, we need to introduce the other half of the heist. 2009, near the end of March. A few friends playing RuneScape finds their fun in breaking the game where they can, and to them, the Slug Menace is their favorite playground, the quest they found to produce more bugs and exploits than any other. And this quest is where they find the big one, a way to break into closed instances, from player-owned houses to the fight caves where they could find other players fighting Jad. They could even break into instance quest areas and mess around with some very confused players. Not long after they discovered this, they attracted the attention of one Jmod in particular. Mod DC, the lead bug curator, made contact with these friends. As a bug curator, one of his responsibilities was to keep a close eye on cheating communities and make sure that any threatening developments were dealt with swiftly. DC and Jagex as a whole regarded these friends as a low-risk group. They may have been skilled bug abusers, but they weren't going to abuse anything which would impact the game or its players. They may have messed around with someone on a Jad attempt, but they weren't going to bring their own gear onto it and duo it with a stranger or anything like that. Jagex didn't make contact with these groups very often, but it was an avenue they could take if it meant they could find and patch up potentially dangerous exploits. DC talked to the friends for a good length of time and promised to make things worth their while if they complied. From membership to in-game recognition in the form of their own chatbox crown, similar to the silver crown of the player moderators but green, like the ones forum moderators enjoyed on the forums. All of this and more would be theirs if they told him how the bugs worked. Offering rewards to bug abusers was nothing new. They'd employed a similar tactic when trying to stop an item dupe several years earlier. And just like last time, they gave with one hand but took with the other. Once the Slug Menace bug was recognized and fixed, DC wasted no time swinging the ban hammer. Abusers, people who helped the abusers, the pizza delivery guy for the abusers, all banned. By issuing IP bans, the abusers lost not only the accounts they had performed the bug on, but any other they had ever logged into, and anyone unfortunate enough to have played on their computer, such as friends and family. In this purge, some RuneScape veterans lost their accounts, ones that had never been associated with bug abuse in their lives. Not willing to be defeated, the friends persisted. They obtained new accounts and evaded the IP bans. This wasn't just a case of clicking the create new account button and playing dumb to the bans. They gained access to some accounts through real-world trading and recovered others which were abandoned and protected by poor security. They were back and better than ever. There weren't just some friends goofing around anymore. They put together a true bug abuse team. HaxUnit was born. HaxUnit was soon to enter their second year of existence and were still going strong. Mod DC's time at Jagex started to come to a close, and he began training up a successor, the community manager Mod Chrisso. As a part of his preparation, DC informs Chrisso of the active cheating communities, including HaxUnit. Soon after, Chrisso makes contact with some of their members. His main correspondents are Roy, known in-game as Waste, a player known only as Hay, and Quint, known in-game as Titanium. For now, Chrisso seems solely fixed on gathering information. Over time, in association with HaxUnit, a handful of obscure bugs are found and fixed. As they were once again considered low risk, they're seen as harmless, and only a few of the abusers' throwaway accounts are banned. Of course, Jagex aren't just receiving information by asking the bug abusers nicely. They maintain heavy surveillance on them and discover far more through account activity of the known abusers as well as the people they talk to in-game. At some point, Mod Easty, an upload manager, makes contact with HaxUnit as well. Easty's responsibilities usually involve reviewing updates ahead of release to make sure the game would work fine. With a background in QA and bug fixing prior to his role as an upload manager, he shares a common interest with HaxUnit in bug abuse and how the core game worked. Just like Chrisso, he was looking to gain insight into potentially abusable bugs so they could be fixed long before they'd ever be a widespread problem. While Jagex claimed HaxUnit were low risk, HaxUnit seemed to suggest that was misguided. From their creation in 2009 to spring 2011, they claimed that they found several major bugs such as muggles and money dupes and sold these bugs to players who would abuse them for profit. However, despite two Jagex moderators keeping a very close eye on them and their accounts, none of these bugs were identified at the time and none of the HaxUnit accounts were banned. HaxUnit had clearly proven themselves to Jagex. They had found and produced a great number of bugs on video, but Jagex did still not ban them, seemingly to prefer having a knowing eye on them than risk them going underground and acting outside of their supervision. Now, obviously Jagex doesn't release their policy on bug abusers to the public, but at the same time, none of the sources I had could give me a confident answer as to why they let the HaxUnit continue to publicly boast about their bug abuse achievements. What they did tell me, however, is that Jagex fully intended to take action if they had any inclination that they were beginning to abuse more serious bugs. If this had happened, the 2011 we know would have been completely different. If you've never encountered this sort of stuff before, it might seem weird that Jagex would just let the bug abusers go about their days and not take any action on them, but you'll find that this is common not just with Jagex but with law enforcement in general. As Jagex stressed at the time, they didn't see HaxUnit as a threat. If they banned them, they weren't just gonna go, well, they banned us, GG boys, they got us. They just keep going like they had when they first formed HaxUnit. And if they were out of Jagex's watchful eye and started abusing bugs in secret, who knows what could have happened. While the 2009 bug from the Slug Menace was fixed, that didn't mean bugs that could invade instances were gone for good. Sure enough, HaxUnit discovered a similar way to break into other people's instances, and during the first Double XP weekend of 2011, they tried to break in to Stealing Creation. The idea was simple. While in a game of Stealing Creation, you could pickpocket other players. So if you managed to get a player into the minigame who wasn't playing it, you should be able to steal items from their inventory. And since there was no need for any restrictions on this in Stealing Creation, you couldn't bring in any of your own items, so pickpocketing was fair game, you'd be able to steal items that you wouldn't normally be able to trade. You could take quest items or even holiday items. A good idea, but it didn't work. While they could enter instances of Stealing Creation, they would end up on the floor below the minigame, which was inaccessible to the players of the minigame and only there for decoration. They were on the cusp of a breakthrough but thwarted at the last hurdle. Or so it seemed. Before they went back to the drawing board, Hay made a suggestion to the others. Sure, they weren't able to get themselves onto the field of a Stealing Creation game, but what if they turned the situation around? Rather than having them teleport into the minigame and getting stuck, what if they had someone teleport to them? Say, a Jagex Moderator. To HaxUnit, having Jagex Moderators breathing down their necks wasn't anything new. They were already in touch with a few of them, so getting one to show up wouldn't be too difficult. Starting their own game of Stealing Creation, they PM'd the first JMod they saw online. Moments later, Mod Easty appeared in their game. Quint set the stage. He told Easty that for this bug, Easty would need to spawn a dragon token in his inventory. A quest item from one of the more dangerous sections in Recipe for Disaster, dragon tokens were both hard to get and untradeable, but featured in many prior exploits by bug abusers. Wary of what HaxUnit were up to, Easty hesitantly agreed and spawned in a dragon token in his inventory. And then, it was gone. Their theory was right. Quint had stolen the dragon token. Stealing Creation's pickpocketing feature bypassed all normal trade restrictions. You could lift absolutely anything off another player. But the thing is, there wasn't any known way for other players to properly break into the instance, not in a way that they'd be able to be pickpocketed. At this point, Easty had been talking to the group for a while, and it was clear that, while amusing, there was no real urgency to this bug. They'd only managed to pull it off by asking a JMod to come to them, which wasn't a luxury the average player had available. A note was made of the exploit, but it was very low priority as it was effectively impossible to replicate. Furthermore, as they'd specifically taken a mostly useless quest item, there was no reason to issue any bans in response to this. It's not like they had asked Easty to spawn party hats for them. Jagex didn't think too much of the encounter, but for HaxUnit, this was a breakthrough. After all, if they did manage to get a Jmod to spawn in party hats or Christmas crackers, the consequences would be huge. Even if they didn't find a way to get players in the instance themselves, this was a working avenue. It was time for HaxUnit to do what they did best: exploit it. 2 days had passed since Quint had pickpocketed a dragon token from Easty. Feeling emboldened, they contacted the lead bug curator Mod Chrisso and asked that he joined a friends chat. They had a bug in an instance location they wanted to show him. Chrisso first teleported to Hey using a throwaway account named DataGuide839. Hey goes for the kill, but the pickpocket fails. The plan's in chaos. You see, in stealing creation, having a high thieving level helps protect you from pickpockets. Being a full 20 levels above someone else makes you immune. Helpfully, HaxUnit saw an in-game message in the chat box reminding them of this, and for whatever reason, Mod Chrisso actually kept going along with it. He teleports to Quint, and while the two are together, HaxUnit tells Chrisso to set his thieving level to 1. And so, Chrisso set his thieving level to 1. When the rotten potato was first added to the game, it was given its form as a way to disguise it and make it unassuming. Fittingly enough, for several minutes, Quint did not realize that they'd stolen one of RuneScape's most valuable items. It was only after they'd realized it was untradeable that they'd hit the jackpot. For the first time in RuneScape's history, a regular player accessed the developer tools. As much as I'd like to make the story sound grander than what it already is, the truth is, most game developer tools aren't very polished. Since users will never see them, as long as they're functional, they can be as much of a mess as they need to be. Lacking the relevant insider information, most of the options on the rotten potato were confusing to HaxUnit. A tool to locate upcoming shooting stars for that particular distraction and diversion was labeled as star stuff. Buried in the menus were a number of other options relating to various RuneScape content, but also some other interesting features, such as a toggle to disable the automatic logout. In the few minutes Quint had the potato available to him, he mostly used it to open his bank and spawn a quest cape. Interestingly enough, he was able to equip the quest cape despite only having 51 quest points, although it was automatically unequipped when he relogged later, like it does for all players when a new quest is released. Quint dropped the rotten potato shortly after receiving it, causing it to instantly despawn. Mod Chrisso wasn't blind and he noticed what had happened. What was once an extremely low priority bug was now the most important one the team had to deal with. Quint's account was quickly disconnected from the game. The very same day, Mod Easty implemented a simple fix. If someone other than a Jmod attempted to use the rotten potato, the item would instantly delete itself. He also added an exception to make sure that Jmods could no longer be pickpocketed in-game. And that was it. No mass panic. Jagex were all well aware of what had happened and the incident spread throughout the office. But Quint hadn't done anything too major with the rotten potato. The one item that it did spawn, the quest cape, was unequipable. It was a self-contained incident that no one else knew about and there was no impact on the greater game at large. So they kept it under wraps, cracked a few jokes in the office about Chrisso's potato, and continued as if nothing had happened. Like it or not, Jagex now faced a problem. They had kept eyes on HaxUnit and treated them as a low risk, but it would be foolish to keep thinking that. After pulling the stunt on Easty, they had roped in Chrisso as a second target and stolen the most dangerous item in all of RuneScape. Sure, they might not have abused it at the time, but what would be next? Not wanting to take the risk, Mod Chrisso spent weeks after the incident banning all HaxUnit accounts as they popped up. All known members were wiped, and the moment they detected any new accounts from them, they slammed those down as well. This crippled HaxUnit's ability to continue their work. New accounts wouldn't have access to the content required to perform the bugs and would be banned before they got anywhere. Bot accounts cost real-world capital, and each ban was wasted money for each of the members. Recovered accounts required some time and investigation, far more than Jagex needed to ban them. It was a losing battle, and so Mod Chrisso had successfully put a stop to what was RuneScape's most notorious active bug abuse community at that time. He'd even done it single-handedly. HaxUnit was done. Or at least that's what Jagex had thought. See, HaxUnit had been backed into a corner with no other way out. Unable to keep working as they were, they fought back. Jagex had no idea that HaxUnit had one last trump card, because Quint had recorded the whole thing. In an act of defiance and an act of revenge, HaxUnit went public, and the now infamous clip was uploaded to YouTube. To say the video was popular would be an understatement. It lit the community on fire. Within thousands of views, discussions of the incident overwhelmed both fan sites and the official RuneScape forums. Jagex were on full damage control. Forum moderators immediately closed any and all threads about the rotten potato that they could find. Mod Chrisso's friend chat was overrun by people trolling him for falling for it and had to be temporarily closed to the public. Discussion in other places, such as the RuneScape wiki, centered around whether the video was legitimate or not and whether it could be counted as evidence for the item even existing. It's the start of the work week, and what a start it would be. Over the course of the weekend, the community outlash had spiraled out of control. Of course, the video had spread internally throughout Jagex, but all the relevant J-mods were already aware of the details. They'd been there when it happened, after all. With the fire on the forums only growing stronger, J-mods began to step in, trying their best to defend Chrisso. At first, they deflected, trying to claim that the rotten potato didn't exist and that the video was fake. Bad move. Remember those data miners from earlier? Well, now they knew that the rotten potato was important, so it was just a case of tracking down the item ID. Given how huge this incident was, it didn't take long for RuneScape's top minds to figure it out. And with that, they could spawn the item on private servers or through a cheat engine, giving them irrefutable proof that it did exist. Forced to backpedal, Mod 7 made a short statement admitting that yes, the rotten potato was real, but actually, the item itself was completely useless to them and they didn't achieve anything other than obtaining it and then losing it. She also claimed that the rotten potato had been showcased to the public during RuneFest 2010, but despite my best efforts when researching this video, I couldn't find any existing evidence to back that claim up. A few months later, on October 14th, 2011, Mod Steve W made another forum post talking about the rotten potato and explaining its uses. He also referred to this incident and doubled down on the claim that the players involved weren't able to use it, despite the video evidence apparently showing otherwise. With the scandal still in the community's collective consciousness, Mod Chrisso kept out of the public eye for several months. He later moved on to another role in the company, with the mantle of lead bug curator being handed to someone Jagex knew they could trust, Mod Reach. Mod Reach would re-establish contact with Quint and work with him once more, with Quint continuing to find and exploit bugs with Jagex's permission. Mod Chrisso's public appearance shrunk to just making the occasional post on the forums, with the incident marking a shift in his behavior at Jagex until he eventually quit in 2013. Not wanting to let the HaxUnit get the last laugh, Jagex tried to take back control of the reputation of the rotten potato. During RuneFest 2011 in late October that year, Jagex held a proper showcase of the item and its functions. J-mods have since publicly used the item and shown it off during events and official streams. In 2013, a parody item was added to the game named the Really Rotten Potato. This could be dropped by the J-mod clones that spawned during the Battle of Lumbridge. Finally, also in 2013, Jagex claimed multiple copyright strikes on the HaxUnit YouTube channel, terminating it completely. While a HaxUnit archive channel has since been made, the rotten potato incident didn't need HaxUnit's help to stay online. The infamous clip has been re-uploaded in multiple places, mostly by third parties, ensuring the legacy lives on. HaxUnit as a team disbanded formally in late 2011. Quint, the player who stole Chrisso's potato, went on to develop Old School HD, something that garnered great support from the Old School community. Jagex didn't share this support, however, and instead sent a cease and desist to the OSHD team, causing it to be shut down in 2017. 2005 was a long time ago, and Jagex tools to find and patch bugs have now advanced much further. Bugs and exploits they used to need tip-offs for can now be found from tools and data, not bug abusers. J-mods no longer entertain cheating communities and shut them down at the first glance, trying their best to consistently apply the rules of RuneScape across all would-be bug abusers. This goes for both RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape, despite the former having a several-year lead on the latter. Although, when Old School first released in 2013, the quest, the Slug Menace, had to be temporarily disabled while Mod Ash fixed some bugs surrounding it. He claims it was specifically to do with one issue that caused player deaths in the final fight, but after everything that stemmed from a couple of friends finding a host of exploits in that one quest, you can't help but wonder, right? I hope you all enjoyed watching this video just as much as I enjoyed making it. A lot of research time went into this project, but hey, I enjoyed it. If you ended up learning something new, or even if you just liked the video, why not give it a like down below? I also want to give a huge shout out to all of the sources who contributed information and visual content on both sides in this video. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to all of you, and to anyone interested, you can find their names in the description down below. I hope it goes without saying, but bug abuse is against the rules of RuneScape and is a surefire way to get yourself banned. Don't try and imitate any of the bug abusers featured in this video. I'm not gonna make a documentary on you in a decade from now on. Anyway, my name is WillMissit, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.